Hey everyone, welcome back to the Self-Work Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wendy. I like to combine all my interests from mental health, wellness, as well as inviting my friends and people who I find interesting to come and share their stories. So that's what this whole podcast is about. And if that sounds like something that's right up your alley, welcome and feel free to subscribe so that you can kind of get to watch more of this content. I am so excited about today's episode because it's a follow-up conversation. You know, the last time we were talking about neurodivergence from a very kind of technical way, you know, these are the symptoms, this is how we manage. But I wanted to bring the conversation a bit home by bringing in somebody who gets it from the point of a personal experience. And that's why I have the lovely lady to my left. I started following Wendy a while back, and not because of the kind of content she creates. I just found her interesting. Her makeup was nice, and I was like, okay, let's see. But then as I got to know her and what she's doing, I was so impressed, and I've always known I wanted her on this channel. So before I just completely lose my train of thought, welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Karibu, welcome. Maybe we can start off with a very cliche question of who is Wendy? Tell us about yourself. We have to start there.
Oh God, okay. My name is Wendy. I am a content creator on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and I am a mom to one boy, and we're gonna be talking about him in the episode. Yeah.
You did well. We were just laughing and talking about how awkward that question is because when someone asks you to introduce yourself, they're like, where do I start? But
Exactly.
You've done well. And the reason you're here is because of course, the experience of raising a neurodivergent child and sharing that on social media.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I found you anyway. How has your journey been sharing, creating content around that experience?
Well, my journey has been good, especially connecting with people who have been going through the same and hearing different stories. And also it has been an outlet for me to create something useful for people, because I remember when I was going through that and I was just looking for somebody to talk to, somebody local in Kenya who makes such content, and I couldn't find. And I decided to make content to help somebody else who will be going through the same as I was. Yeah.
You're quite right. I don't believe there are many people sharing their stories. So thank you for being that person. But you don't just share about raising a neurodivergent child on your channel.
Yes. I do share a lot of lifestyle, beauty, hair, makeup. I mean, my channel is more about how my life is evolving, and just because my son is autistic, it's just part of the life. I don't normally create content just around autism. Yeah.
You mentioned when you were starting this journey, it was difficult to get people to guide you. Maybe let's talk a bit about how the journey started. When did you start to realize something's going on?
Well, just after 1 year mark, that's when the doctor tells you should be hearing words like mom, dad, and just, simple blabberish things. And he couldn't say. So I was like, okay, let's give it time. Children are different. And then 1 year and a half, he said mom and then stopped. He just stopped. So I was like, okay. And then we got to 2 years. We're still not verbal. And then he was very socially unaware. He could go to some place with strangers and couldn't care that they're strangers, couldn't interact with children. I mean, that's the first few signs I started to notice. And then I started to look at Google. And then I now started seeing other things, like he had repetitive behavior. He would spin in circles a lot. So I quickly shut that down because I was like, no way my child has autism. So I didn't give it a thought, though it was at the back of my mind, like I need to know. And then fast forward when he was like 2.5, I decided to go get an assessment so that I can know where to help him. Yeah.
And when you went for the assessment and they confirmed it, did the answer surprise you? What was going through your mind after the assessment?
Well, they just confirmed what I had. I feel like I already knew, but being told he meets the criteria, it broke my heart. I remember just thinking, being so scared, and now thinking, what will his life be like? And will he just have a normal childhood? What does this mean? And I just started crying at the doctor's office. And I couldn't hear a thing she said after. She had to write everything down for me. I just remember her saying things on therapy. And the last question I asked her was like, okay, so what spectrum is he on? And she told me he's like on stage 2. And I should start therapies and all these things. I felt like I was so bombarded. I felt like I don't know what to do. So I went home and I had to sit with that thought. And now it's been confirmed. I need to know how to help my child. Yeah. So it was scary, but I thought I kind of knew it. Yeah, I kind of knew it.
Mother's instinct, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Let's say that, yeah.
Let's talk about how the medical community, what role did they play? Did you find them helpful? Did you struggle from doctor to doctor? Did you find that we are adept at identifying and doing a proper assessment, or do you think in Kenya we need to do a little bit better for these kids?
Well, I didn't have a problem with the assessment because I felt there were many precaution things that I had to do first. Go for an ear, like a hearing test, because probably that's why he wasn't talking, because he couldn't hear. So we went for an assessment. His hearing came out fine. And then we did this long assessment. And she truly explained to me the criteria that he met for him to be considered autistic. And for me, I felt that was it, because I always wondered what is wrong, because I always felt that he's different, but I couldn't figure out how different he is. Yes. Yeah.
So you found we had, the doctors and...
Yeah, I'll say I've had the privilege of finding the doctor and him getting diagnosed by a good doctor, because I feel like she has... Everyone I talk to, they tell me that's the best doctor to go to. So I feel like, yeah, I had the privilege of getting a good diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the process was not too... But she's always very fully booked. So you had to queue for weeks.
But it was worth it.
It was worth it.
I had you mention something earlier that we have to explore. You talked about a spectrum. And we did actually get a question from one of my followers on Instagram. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, maybe you're listening through the podcast platforms, please follow me on Instagram because we can engage a little bit more. My handle is Dr._Wendy. So somebody sent in a question that I think I would like you to make a comment. So make a comment about autism being a spectrum. Because the question is, can a 4-year-old recover from autism through therapy?
Well, first, I think this maybe parents doesn't know that autism is not like a disease. So it's not like homa, you'll cure homa or any other disease. This is just how the brain functions. It means that your brain functions different from the other person. So you might have traits. So we don't know what traits this parent wants to cure,
right?
In quotes. So probably it's speech delay. Yes, autistic children can speak, and some have spoken. And my son was nonverbal for such a long time, and he just started speaking. So yes, is it being socially awkward? My son really tries to at least make friends, and even his school was congratulated him for making a friend. So, I mean, these traits can go away, but the autistic brain, the different brain, will never be cured because it's not a disease. It just means different. And maybe that's a good thing. It's good to be different.
I sense the desperation from, I'm guessing this is a parent, maybe a mother. You can sense that what they are really asking is there a cure? And I really love the answer that you've given, in that it's not a disease that we need to fix and get rid of and kind of say now we are better, right? It's kind of helping the child and adults, cope with this and have a better quality of life, and building skills like communication skills, social skills.
Exactly.
So recover there, I would be hesitant to say yes, you can recover, but I can say that the quality of life can definitely improve using these different therapies.
Yes.
We also talked about, rather I had you mention stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's super, super controversial. I'm sure if you watch the episode where we talk about neurodivergence, I'll have broken down what are these stages. But for anyone maybe who hasn't watched, the different stages kind of put the autistic children in terms of functionality, how much help do they need. So after an assessment, you have stage 1 who need minimal kind of help.
Yes.
Then you've got stage 2 who need moderate help, and then stage 3 they need a lot of support.
Yes, they need a lot of support.
Make a comment about what, as a mom, what those stages mean to you when you're told your child is this stage or that.
For me, the stages just mean the kind of the level of help that my child would need. That's it. Yeah.
But I know it's a bit controversial because for some people, they really don't like these stages.
Yeah, they don't. They don't like being grouped because people will be like, just because I can't do this, does this make me a stage, whatever. And yeah, in the autism community, especially for those who go through, who are autistic, they don't like being boxed into levels. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. So for me, it just makes me know what level my child is on and what kind of help I can get him. And also, even in the levels, you can find 2 children who are in level 2 who are very different, very, very different. So it doesn't mean that they are all the same. It just means that they vary in however they, yeah.
I like that, because I don't believe in any way the stages were designed to make one person less than.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also a guide for the medical community to know what help, an autistic child needs. But I also believe these controversies are not generally bad, but they help us to have these conversations and make things better and improve.
Yeah.
But I think maybe what I can ask is, what's been your biggest challenge as a parent to an autistic child?
Him being nonverbal was the biggest challenge, because the tantrums, crazy. They want something, they can't say it, they don't know how to express themselves. And you're even afraid to leave them with anybody, because you, as a parent, you're already exhausted. You're like trying to figure out. So I couldn't imagine leaving my child for long with somebody else. And, that's how you find that this child has been beaten and all these things. Because not everybody understands. Many people would look at my child and say, siyako sawa, but they don't know what you go through. They don't know how he is and what challenges he has. Yeah, so not having a child who doesn't look autistic has been also, a challenge in itself, in terms of people just brushing you off. many times, mtoto ana kitu, but they don't know what you go through. And that's usually very hurtful. I think a lot of people think that that's a good thing to say, because before I picked myself up, I took myself to the doctor to get an assessment. There were reasons why I did that. And I wouldn't want to say he is like this and he's not like this. For me, it's actually a good thing that I know, because now I feel like a huge burden has been lifted off my shoulders, because now I understand him better, and I can be able to even pick schools which are better for him. Because imagine if I didn't know he was autistic and I took him to just, any school, and he struggled and struggled and struggled. You see, I wouldn't be doing him any justice. So I feel like knowing has lifted a huge load off my shoulders.
Let's talk about schools, because you brought it up. And I do know that, as you said, some children struggle because they're undiagnosed, and then they get to a school and they're branded naughty. They're always being punished. What has your experience been with school and placement and people understanding your child?
He's been to 2 schools, and they have not discriminated him in any way. It's like they're children who are also autistic. They've handled autistic children before. My problem was I needed to find a school where it's hands-on, like play-based, because for him I found that was the best environment for him to grow, because even at home that's all we used to do, and he's very fast at learning things, especially when it's hands-on, because he doesn't settle down very well. He likes activities, so I needed to find a school that also does the same. Yeah.
So it's not that you had a bad experience with the first school, you just needed more.
I just needed a different kind of a setup. Okay. It wasn't necessarily a bad experience. I just felt for the kind of child he is, he needed something else.
Yes. Right. And I think you are perhaps one of the lucky few, because, the horror stories are out there. I think everybody thinks that every child who's on the spectrum, first of all, needs to go to a special school. Can we have a conversation about special schools for a minute? Because I've had, comments from people who complain about autistic children interacting with their children or being in their class. And they ask questions like, why isn't this child in a special school? Because he's disrupting the class and he's stressing out the other kids. This is a real conversation. So what would you say to perhaps a mother who asked you, why don't you just take him to a special school because he's disrupting the class?
Oh, wow, that's such a difficult question, but we need our children to see that they're children who look different. Oh, and that is a conversation that we need to have, because that's how we grow up. We don't know what autism is, and we don't know that there are people who struggle. And I don't see anything bad with, neurotypical children having the same class with neurodivergent people, because we all struggle. Let's show our children that there's somebody who doesn't look like you, and that's okay. Yeah.
Because that's the real world. In the real world, people are different. So actually that shows us the parent in that case is the one who doesn't know, was never brought up in a scenario where people were different. It's actually a reflection of the narrow-mindedness of the parent. And I agree with you. I think, segregating a child, that's not the real world. Yeah. So as we wrap up, and I'm really glad you've answered that question, because I know it was very sensitive, but there are people who think like that. Yeah. Perhaps I would like to ask you to what would be your message to any parent who's starting this journey, thinking you a year ago, 2 years ago, they're being told, the assessment is positive and this is the stage, and they're just hearing words. Yeah. What would you like to say to them?
I'd say to them, take your time, research, learn more about it, because a lot of the time you're bombarded with all these things like nutrition, cut out everything, go to all these 10 therapies. Like, take your time, research, learn more about it, then work with your child. Like, you know your child better more than the doctors. You know what they struggle with on a day-to-day. Is it speech? Do they need occupational therapy? Then now start one by one, because when you do everything all at once, I mean, it's very overwhelming. This is a journey that even today I still learn so much. So it's very overwhelming, and just take it one day at a time. Your child is still your child. Before the diagnosis, how you looked at them and they were the best thing in the world, they're still the best thing in the world. It doesn't change anything. It just means that they're different, and it's not always a bad thing to be different.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. It's not always a bad thing to be. In fact, it's not a bad thing to be different.
It's not a bad thing to be different. Yeah.
One thing I love about how you're parenting your child is you've just decided you know what's best for your child and you do it. I mean, I think just the other day that you do these videos where you pack a lunchbox.
Yes.
She packs snacks for her child. And it's not the typical, what we grew up with kind of snacks. And I think I saw people asking, this is too Western. And you were just like, this is me and I'm doing my own thing. Like, say what you want to say. Yeah. So I love that about you. But does it ever get to you, perhaps especially online, when people kind of want to tell you how to do it, or even offline? I don't know, maybe does it ever get to you when people want to tell you how to raise your child?
I mean, before it used to, but now I honestly don't care, because I know I'm doing my best, and people throw in their insecurities on you just because they never saw anything like this growing up. So automatically you're just doing something wrong. People will always have a comment and a view on how you raise your child, and everybody's gonna think they're the best parent, and I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do this, but this is me and this is my child and this is my life, and I feel like I'm doing something amazing, and that's all that matters.
You are.
Yeah.
Guys, if you really don't follow Wendy, please do. And especially for any mom or dad or anybody who has a loved one who is neurodivergent, you need to be following Wendy, because she just shares her life in a way that just doesn't look at the child as just an autistic child, And I love that. I thank you so much, Wendy, for coming to speak to me. Thank you, everyone, for watching and getting to this very part of the conversation. If you've not subscribed by now, I really don't know what we are doing, because it's giving abuse, because you're just watching my stuff and you're not subscribing. Please subscribe so that we can get to grow. Leave a comment if you've got any questions. Leave a question there. I'd be glad to answer. And that's it, guys. We are still talking about neurodivergence, and hopefully soon I'll be bringing in another guest. You've given me the site to bring in somebody else.
Please do.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
So much for having me. This was amazing.
Oh yeah,
Really good.
all right, guys, and with that, it's the end of the episode. We will see you next time. As usual, love and light. Bye.
Bye.